So here on this design, at a first glance, it just looks clean, maybe calm, minimal, quite nice actually. But once you slow down and actually start looking at the human decisions, you realize this isn't random at all, and it's not just kind of prompted and AI driven. Take the image itself first. The boat is placed almost centrally, which gives it stability and is kind of a focal point. But it's not static. It's moving away from us, the viewer, slightly towards the upper left. That direction matters more than people realize, because it creates a sense of progression, of leaving, of quiet movement, which ties directly into the idea of silence and escape. That's what the brand is trying to hint at here. If the boat was coming towards us as the viewer, or just sitting still, the entire feeling changes on the design completely. Then you've got the lighting. It's not harsh, and it's not overly dramatic either. Rather, it's delightfully soft, golden, kind of nostalgic in some ways. And that's doing a lot of emotional work on this design without saying anything at all. It leans into the idealized Mediterranean feeling, the warmth, the calmness, the stillness. And it's not just a nice photo, it's kind of a very specific kind of atmosphere being chosen and being pushed onto you, the viewer. But now cast your eyes to the typography. It is a bit restrained, but nothing is shouting out too loud. Villa Burma sits comfortably, slightly elegant, slightly understated, to be honest. The script layered over the serif adds a human touch, kind of like a signature and breaking the rules, and that reinforces that kind of sense of place and identity. But then check out the spacing. Look how deliberate the spacing is on light, silence, and sea. That is so obviously done by a designer's brain. So yeah, when you step back, this isn't just kind of a nice layout. It's a collection of small, very intentional decisions that all point in the same direction, the same visual language and message. And that's exactly what design thinking actually looks like in practice. And it's also the part AI struggles with right now, because it's about choosing what should feel right and also why. And AI can design parts of this for sure, but importantly, that is only if a designer with knowledge controls it in the first place. So here's something you can take away from all of this and actually start doing it straight away too. Every time you look at a design, maybe even your own design, stop asking yourself if it looks good. That's the easiest question to ask in the world, and it's not really helpful because it doesn't do anything for you. Instead, ask yourself 3 things. What is it trying to make me feel? What is it trying to make me do? And what decisions have been made to get me there on this design? If you can start answering those questions quickly without overthinking it, your design eye is for sure improving, because that's really what training your eye is all about. It's recognizing intention first, seeing why something works, or more importantly perhaps why it doesn't work. Here's something that takes a long time for most designers to unlearn, and that is designing to impress. Beginners usually design for approval alone. They try to impress their client with skill or some kind of Photoshop effect. They want their client or their boss to say, wow, and they chase aesthetic praise like, that looks amazing, or I love the color choice here. But the truth is, none of that means the design is actually working. Experts don't have a priority of their design being admired. They design to get a result. The focus actually shifts from pleasing people to guiding actions. Do majority of users click here? Did they read this? Did they buy? Did they remember? That's the shift that really matters. If a client says, yeah, this looks okay, but the campaign gets 40% more conversions, that's a win. And as a designer, your job is to make things actually happen. So before you even open up your software, ask yourself what success actually looks like. So on that project, does it look like more signups, more product sales, higher time spent on a landing page? If you can define that goal first, then design backwards from it. You might say, well, my client doesn't actually care about that. They just want things to look a certain way. Okay, your client likely is actually low tier in the business world, and they likely pay you very little money for your time. Part of the designer's role in the real world is to demonstrate and persuade a client why your design choices work and how they benefit them, maybe financially or in some other way. Now, this cover is one of those designs where the idea is so simple that you almost wish you thought of it yourself. It's for a Bloomberg Businessweek issue discussing a long-running bull market. Now this is the creative hack or technique that you should learn here. When you have a niche audience, in this case people interested in stocks or finance, consider the language or the terms they use, because a bull market is a term that simply means a market is in an uptrend. Now what's interesting here is that the idea only works because the designer understands the audience. If you show this to somebody who has zero interest in investing and no understanding in it too, they might just see a weird bull standing in the field. But investors, they instantly understand the reference. And that's a really important lesson, because one of the biggest mistakes designers make is trying to communicate to absolutely everyone. Great concepts often come from understanding a specific audience deeply enough to speak their language. So one of the worst things you can do right now is become visually generic. You do not need to force some kind of fake signature style into everything you make, but you should start noticing recurring themes in your work. What kind of aesthetics naturally interest you? Like for me, for a long time, it's been bold, minimal work that has a hint of luxury or class within it. And hey, this is crucial. Stop chasing every single design trend that appears online, because memorable designers are usually opinionated designers. One genuinely worrying thing right now is how people learn new topics. You see, AI is becoming incredibly good at giving people answers, but understanding isn't the same thing as copying an answer. And if we continue on in this trend, not using our brains effectively, the future looks pretty bleak. And if I had children, I'd want AI helping them learn how to think, not simply doing the work for them and letting that dopamine run everywhere wild. And that's actually why Brilliant caught my attention. They've built an AI tutor called Koji. And the interesting part is that Koji deliberately doesn't just hand you the solution. It asks questions, it breaks problems down into smaller steps, and it guides students until they actually understand what's going on. And to me, this is revolutionary.
Python is one of the most popular languages today, but others like JavaScript and C++ are widely used too.
So I tested it myself and it really impressed me. When I got stuck, Koji didn't immediately rescue me. Instead, it asked another question and even drew directly onto the problem to explain what was I looking at here. That feels much closer to having a real tutor sitting beside you than simply chatting to another AI chatbot. And looking back, far back actually, I wish something like this existed when I was at school. And if you are a parent with children in say grade 5 to 12, or you've got someone heading into college, it's definitely worth trying. You can scan the QR code on the screen right now or use my link below to try Koji for free. And if you do decide to upgrade, you'll also get 20% off Brilliant Premium. And a huge thanks to Brilliant for sponsoring this part of today's educational graphic design video. Another thing that changes as you get better is you stop thinking about what the design says and you start thinking about the psychological or emotional state the person is in when they come to see it. Because that consideration completely changes how it should feel the other end. So just picture someone scrolling a charity website. It's not the same mindset as someone casually flicking through a fashion magazine. One might be a bit cautious, maybe looking for trust, maybe slightly open emotionally. The other one is just a bit relaxed, they're just browsing, not thinking too deeply. And so if your design doesn't match the starting point they have emotionally, something is going to feel off straight away for them. So instead of just focusing on the message, you're kind of tuning the design to meet the person where they already are. And so consider a marketing advert built into a fashion magazine. The designer might lean into bold visuals, strong contrast, and clean, confident typography so they can grab some attention instantly. And it's less about explaining and more about creating a feeling, something aspirational that makes the viewer pause, even for a second. But just remember, whenever you're starting a design or working on a design, think about the person you're designing for. How are they feeling before they get to your design? You might sometimes hit a point where your workflow feels good, it feels great even. You know what you're doing, you can get things done without thinking too much about it, and then you get comfortable. And that's the problem, because that comfort is where most designers stop improving in their workflows. It's a trap. And it makes sense that it's a trap, because why fix something that's broken, right? But what happens is that new tools will emerge, new ways of doing things come into being, and there will be small things that shave time off here or there. And you won't actually feel it at first, but over time you'll start to fall behind in terms of efficiency. So we have a branding project by Vadim Karazan, and that is Netrunner. Now I do love this branding project, and before we reverse engineer it, as I briefly scroll through the project, think about everything we've spoken about in today's video in regard to emotion. This is what professional graphic design is all about. Consider what emotions this design might want to leverage and evoke, and why does it want to do that? How has a designer made sure this design does leverage emotion? But yeah, this branding project is really neat, and let's just scroll back up to the top and actually talk about it. So we know the first category is color, but what do you get from the color palette in terms of emotion on this design? So it's mainly blue, purple, and a kind of black. And when considering emotion, typically what do these colors represent? Well, blues and purples do represent a lot of peace, calmness, and trust. And that makes a whole lot of sense when we read here that the brand deals with healthcare, insurance, and biotech industry sectors. The emotions of peace, calmness, and trust are perfect reflections needed in those niches. The color palette here isn't a fluke or just a random choice. That should be obvious, but hey, let's move on to typography, which might be a bit more complicated. Looking at the typeface, what can we notice here in terms of emotion? For me, firstly, it's the recognition that this is a sans serif font, and it's an ultra sleek sans serif at that. This helps evoke emotions of modernity, which plays into the biotech industry, but also it's quite clean, which helps point to healthcare as well. Furthermore, the logo is seen in lowercase letters. The designer could have easily used uppercase here, but the use of lowercase letters is more informal and more soft, which does help evoke trust. Again, that's great for the insurance industry sector. Also, notice how the clean curves on the typeface mimic the style of the logo. And speaking of the logo, if we look down here, we can see the logo is slanted, it's almost italic, and also it's split up, which according to the designer evokes a sense of speed and movement. And that plays into the modern approach of this logo. In terms of layouts, we have a very clean and a very minimal layout, and this helps reinforce the other emotional connotations we mentioned earlier. And when looking at the imagery, it plays right into the modern and the cutting-edge industry sectors. So yeah, it's not a fluke that this branding project is a success and it works well. The designer has used the theory of emotion to make design choices and has excelled in their role of brand visionary. But if you really want to excel in graphic design, just click the video on screen, and until next time guys, design your future today. Peace.